Hello, welcome to a very special segment of Fiji and Diaspora News. I'm Satish Rai. As mentioned in last news segment, Fiji's Attorney General, Mr. Aiyaz Sayed-Khaiyum, was in Sydney in the weekend, and he took some time out to come and visit Liverpool. During his visit to Liverpool, he met up with some prominent Indian Fijian business people at the Himani India restaurant in George Street, situated in the heart of the Fijian Indian community of Sydney and Australia. Here is what he had to say to the prominent business community members.
Business get together, although it was a late invitation, and many members of our Liverpool business community that are busy today. Saturday is a shopping day, most of the businessmen are busy selling, and we have a few members of the community here, and we welcome you on behalf of the community at large. And this is a forum that we wanted to engage today. That there are a lot of people that have got interest in Fiji at heart, and there are a lot of investors that do investment at their own time or probably within their own means, and probably the Attorney General could tell us more about the opportunities available for the former citizens and what is happening in Fiji in terms of elections, in terms of the new constitution, in terms of the new arrangements that is in place. The forum is yours, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm trying to keep it as informal as possible. In fact, just before coming down to the ground, we were up at our office in Walker Street in North Sydney. We had about, 15 people or so?
20, sir.
About 20. Representing different groups, including Marisol Boys, which is the school I went to, who were there, and basically took them through the constitution in terms of the development of what's happening in the elections. We did talk a lot about the economic growth, etc. in Fiji. But I think from a business perspective, you'd probably be interested more in terms of what are the economic prospects. I think fundamentally for any country to be economically prosperous, you need a number of fundamental characteristics. As people talk about the great economy of America and various other places. The reason why they actually became so large so quickly, etc., was because of the notion of common and equal citizenry, where the rules were applied to everybody, the same rules were applied to everybody. And there was a facilitating environment provided by the government. In Fiji, we have a unique situation where we have 91% of all the land is owned by the Itauke, and then we have the balance, which is leased land or freehold land. But notwithstanding that, there is an enormous amount of opportunities in terms of investment in Fiji, in terms of economic growth rates. I had somebody say to me, well, you really can't have that happening in Fiji because you can only lease land. Well, if you go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, you can't buy land also. All the land is leased. But people still feel confident to invest in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It's owned by the sheikh, whoever is the ruler of Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But people feel confident. The reason why I feel confident is because the rules and regulations apply equally to everybody. And there's a very healthy investment environment, in development application, processes are all done very, very quickly. So in Fiji there is that potential too. And what the Beni Marama government has been doing is obviously providing the fundamental philosophical approach to common and equal citizenry whilst protecting land rights. And at the same time, this new constitution, you'll see, protecting the rights of tenants and lessees also. It is very, very critical to do that. Now, what we have from an economic, commercial, financial perspective doing is, firstly, we've been completely committed to ensuring that government finances are managed well. We manage government finances very, very well. Government finances are managed well also in terms of the transparency. So for the first time, we have government books opened up, etc., in terms of the financial accountabilities. We have now put in place an independent commission against corruption, or people call FICAC. Under the new constitution, for example, the president, the prime minister, the ministers, the senior civil servants, everybody has to declare their assets and liabilities, and they have to do it on an annual basis. So from next year, January, you'll know exactly how much money I have in my bank account, how many homes or assets I have, and my wife has, and my dependent children have. So these are new old mechanisms of accountability. So in 1 year's time, if you see that my bank balance has suddenly shot up to $1 million, you know, you question where I've got the money from. So they have investigative powers that we put in place. Similarly, all these independent institutions have been authorized to carry out their functions independently, but more so Parliament has to ensure that they always have enough money to function independently. So that's another crux of the issue. Those accountability mechanism obviously must flow through. So in other words, if you as a developer go along, nobody's going to ask you to say put $10,000 under the table or on top of the table, then I'll look at your application. If you remove that, that gives you confidence. Because you know that the same rules will apply to everybody. Not just because I've got more money than he has. So that's key, and people sometimes miss that. The second issue, of course, is the judicial system. We've given it a lot of resources over the past few years. It's completely independent. It has a charge over government finances. At the moment, as we speak, if the Chief Justice wants to transfer a court clerk from Bar to Tavua, he can't do it. So how can it be truly independent? This new constitution says he can, with the Judicial Services Commission. So all those sort of built-in mechanisms are there. So as an investor, that's very, very critical to you. The third thing, of course, is probably been the most challenging, which is the bureaucracy. Many people will tell you this morning or this afternoon when we're up at the consular office, some people complain about the fact that they have put in development applications and it's been taking too long. Yes, we accept that, and that's something that we've been working on. In fact, some of our laws date back to 1897, trademark laws, etc. We've got development laws that have not kept up to speed with engineering methodologies that have changed over the years. So for example, before, you had to build back a certain number of meters from a river bank because the technology and the engineering technology was not there, methodology. But now you can. But our laws have not caught up with that. So we have, for example, in 1 year, made more laws, made more amendments in 1 year than they did since independence. We have now formed more diplomatic relationships with countries than they've done since independence. We did that in 1 year. So you now have Fijian students going off to Morocco, Cuba, India, China on scholarships, Indonesia, Malaysia. A lot more countries that are opening up to us. And in fact, the announcement made to Switzerland. So Fiji has learned to stand on its own and become a lot more resourceful. So by doing that, we are also focusing a lot on educating our children, on educating our society at large, because that's one of our key strengths. So in terms of the challenges regarding the bureaucracy, we're trying to build those capacities within the bureaucracy, but we are unlocking a lot of the strangleholds we had. So now Fiji has the lowest corporate tax rate in the whole of the South Pacific, apart from Vanuatu, of course, which is tax-free zone country. You pay 20% corporate tax rate. The income tax threshold has now moved up to 16,000. So in other words, people before, when the Rama government was appointed, if you earn $8,500 or more, you had to pay tax. Now it's $16,000. It's only up to 16,000. And then the first threshold is from 16,000 to 21,000. They pay only 7% tax. Maximum is 20%, up to any level. Much lower than Australia, much lower than New Zealand. Our economic model is different. Our tax rate is lower. We encourage more consumption. We encourage more investment. If you invest plant and machinery into Fiji, it's zero rated duty. Don't pay any duty. That's why you've seen that now there are massive amount of factories being built or people upgrading. I'll give you a few examples. We are now on a very small scale exporting to Australia water pipes and sewage pipes. To Australia. Unthinkable. Very small quantity. The Aussies obviously don't like it, the business houses. But it's enormous potential. Our people are very well educated. They are quite skilled compared to the rest of the Pacific Island countries. In Papua New Guinea, there's a population of 7 million people. It's bigger than New Zealand. They've got a lot of mineral resources. So we've identified Papua New Guinea as a country where we can invest in, where there's enormous potential for our manufacturers, for our people who want to work as carpenters, boiler makers, and various manufacturing plants. Recently, the Prime Minister went to Papua New Guinea on a state visit. We took a trade delegation. We had some companies that came back with orders for boots, shoes, because we make those for their security agencies. We are exporting something like 60-70 containers of Maggi noodles from Ba to Papua New Guinea. So there is at the moment, as we speak, a massive biscuit factory being built in Lautoka that will be exporting biscuits to Australia, in New Zealand, in the USA, and the Pacific. A number of things are being done. So that has sort of unleashed the potential. So our economic philosophy is that you simply cannot just rely on sugar or just tourism. We have to expand our economic base. People must be able to earn a living, make a living from different avenues of industry in Fiji. We have launched the Buy Fijian, Made in Fiji program. So people are encouraged to buy. If they have to choose between a local made power rate to an imported one, rather they buy the local made power rate. We make power rate in Fiji now. So those sorts of things we're encouraging, inculcating that idea, and it's happening. Like with the handicraft. When you go to Fiji and buy handicraft, don't buy the ones from some of the major handicraft stores, because it comes from Philippines. Some wood carved come from Philippines. We want them to buy the authentic stuff. They pay a higher price, they don't mind doing that. So there's enormous potential. We, for example, reduce the minimum threshold. There used to be a minimum threshold of $250,000. You needed to have as a foreign investor. We've removed that. So you can basically come in. We have now also put in place dual citizenship, multiple citizenship, as you probably heard me in the past. So if you're a former Fijian, you're entitled to your citizenship. You pay a small fee, which we consider a small fee, and you can get your citizenship back, unless, of course, you've been locked up in Pentridge or some other prison for trafficking or drug smuggling or whatever it is. We want good quality people to come back, but you're generally entitled to get your citizenship back, and that, I think, is encouraging a lot of people also. Some people spend time here and they go back to Fiji, they become very enterprising. So at the moment, the economy the growth rate has been revised up to 3.6%. Independent assessments. Sometimes IMF was there, they're quite surprised at what is happening. We're carrying out a number of reforms in state-owned enterprises. We are looking, for example, at a partial divestment of the airport. We had some very, very, very good interest for the airport. We now, for example, in our ports, shipping companies charge $25 more a container to bring cargo to Fiji because the turnaround time is very slow. So they have to spend more time at our ports, burn more fuel. Now we have got for Fiji Ports Corporation, the subsidiary company Ports Terminal that runs the port, we've got a major publicly listed company from Sri Lanka. We call for international tenders. They are now running the ports for us. They own 51% of the ports terminal. Already the turnaround time has improved significantly. The inefficiencies has been reduced by 1/3. So the idea is you need to have the management systems in place, because Fiji then can truly become the hub. We want every single ship that wants to send goods to Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu, Kiribati, New Caledonia, wherever it is, come to Fiji first. Then they disperse out from there. And the only way they'll do that is if Fiji becomes efficient. Why? Look at Singapore, it's a speck. It's a mud bank. It's not bigger than Tabuning. That's the size of Singapore. It's not bigger than Tabuning. But we all go, wow, Singapore is so wonderful. The reason why they were able to do that in Singapore is precisely because of that. Efficiency management. We buy our oil from Singapore. Singapore has no oil. Brings the oil from the Middle East and refines it and sells it to us, and the rest of the world. So you see, in order to do that, we need to improve the efficiency of the economy. We've got the 3 new A330 aircraft, unheard of. We've never owned aircraft, in particular Airbuses at that size. So we are creating, reducing our dependency on other people. In order to be a strong country, you need to have strong management systems, you need to have a strong company that's Fijian owned.
After the address, Mr. Khaiyum shared late lunch with us all, and during this late lunch, the conversation continued, and he also answered some questions from the members who were present. After that, he said, of course, his goodbyes. We hope you enjoyed this segment, and we'll bring more of the same, and also different aspects of news and current affairs happening in Fiji and in the Fijian diaspora as we go along. And it's goodbye from me and from my team.